Welcome to the Dermatology Studio with Dr. Yusra Ayaz.
Welcome to Dermatopathology Unlocked, a visual guide focusing on tissue architecture, cellular morphology, and diagnostics. Today we'll cover biopsy techniques, stains, epidermal changes, giant cells, immunofluorescence, and many exam favorites. Stay till the end, because I'll keep asking quick recall questions throughout the video. Before we jump into pathology, let's first understand how dynamic the skin really is. Skin is constantly renewing itself. Keratinocytes are continuously moving upward from the basal layer toward the stratum corneum. When this process speeds up or slows down, disease patterns appear. Cellular turnover in normal epidermis takes about 30 days. However, in conditions like psoriasis, this can speed up to just 4 days. First, let's look at some important investigations. Slit skin smear is commonly used in leprosy. Skin snip is used in onchocerciasis. NNN medium, which stands for Novi-McNeil-Nicoll medium, is associated with leishmaniasis. And thermal culture around 32 degrees is useful in diabetic foot infections. These are very important one-line associations for exams. The biopsy decision matrix helps determine the best biopsy technique based on the lesion type. For melanocytic lesions, an elliptical surgical biopsy is recommended. And here's the high-yield point. Incisional, shave, or punch biopsy should be avoided in suspicious melanocytic lesions. Why? Because partial sampling may miss the most important malignant area. The specimen should ideally include a small margin of normal skin. Punch biopsies are used for inflammatory conditions, shave biopsy is used for superficial lesions. Curettage is commonly done for hyperkeratotic lesions, like warts. Once the biopsy is taken, the next challenge begins preserving it correctly. Because even a perfect biopsy becomes useless if stored incorrectly. So proper preservation is crucial. For routine histopathology, the standard fixative is 10% neutral buffered formalin. But for microbiology studies or fat studies, fresh or frozen tissue is preferred. Now comes immunofluorescence, one of the most exam-oriented areas. The classic transport medium is Michel's medium. And interestingly, even honey can be used for DIF and antigen mapping. Normal saline can also help preserve tissue for short duration. Now let's remember the temperatures. Direct immunofluorescent samples are usually stored at -20 degrees Celsius. Short-term storage of indirect immunofluorescence sample is at 4 degrees Celsius, and its long-term storage is around -20 degrees. Now let's move to the stain laboratory, where colors become diagnoses. Each stain highlights a different pathological target. Pathologists use these high-yield stains to identify key cellular and structural elements. For instance, gold chloride highlights Langerhans cells. Von Cosa stain detects calcium. Masson-Fontana stain highlights melanin. Zeil-Nielsen stain detects acid-fast bacilli. Congo red stain is used for amyloid. Mast cells are detected by Persian blue, and toluidine blue is used to show mast cell metachromasia. Try remembering stains as detective tools. Each stain reveals what routine hematoxylin and eosin cannot. Now we enter the core language of dermatopathology, epidermal reaction patterns. Epidermal changes can be characterized by various architectural deformations. Hyperkeratosis is a thickened stratum corneum, while acanthosis involves a thickened stratum spinosum. Acantholysis is the loss of cellular adhesion, and dyskeratosis is the premature keratinization of individual cells. Oil drop sign in psoriasis is due to porokeratosis, and Wickham striae in lichen planus are due to hypergranulosis. Notice how every histological word is actually describing a structural change in the epidermis. Now let's move deeper into the dermis. One fascinating feature here is the Gren zone. This is a thin band of relatively normal dermis, separating the epidermis from underlying pathology. Whenever you hear Gren zone, think of diseases like lepromatous leprosy. Colloid or Savat bodies are dead keratinocytes appearing like eosinophilic globules. Elastic degeneration occurs in chronically sun-exposed skin. Hyaline degeneration creates a glassy eosinophilic appearance. Now let's talk patterns. Storiform pattern means spindle cells arranged in a cartwheel or woven appearance. Desmoplasia refers to dense fibrotic stromal reaction. Dermatopathology is really about pattern recognition. The more patterns you recognize, the faster you diagnose. Now we're entering one of the highest yield memory sections, microabscesses. And trust me, location is everything. Subcorneal pustules are collections of neutrophils beneath the stratum corneum. Classic association, impetigo. Patria microabscesses are collections of atypical lymphocytes within the epidermis. Think mycosis fungoides. Papillary tip microabscesses occur in dermal papillae, and contain neutrophils and eosinophils, seen in dermatitis herpetiformis. Now, two important structural terms. Thecae means nests of cells. Villi are elongated dermal papillae, projecting into a blister cavity. Now let's understand where these cells actually come from. Monocytes circulate in blood. When they enter tissue, they mature into macrophages and histiocytes. Some histiocytes can fuse together to form giant cells. Lymphocytes originate from bone marrow and mature further in lymphoid organs. Merkel cells are especially abundant in non-hairy skin. Now an important exam favorite, caminobodies. These are eosinophilic globules seen in Spitz nevis. Now let's identify cells by appearance, almost like recognizing faces. Lymphocytes look like tiny purple dots. Plasma cells have an eccentric nucleus with the famous clock face chromatin. Neutrophils show multi-lobed nuclei, and eosinophils have bilobed nuclei and bright eosinophilic cytoplasm. Histiocytes appear as elongated large cell with abundant cytoplasm. Mast cells contain dense nuclei with fried egg appearance. And Langerhans cells, which are known as antigen-presenting cells, show characteristic rod-shaped structures. Cellular and nuclear alterations are key indicators. Cells not only change shape, their nuclei also tell us whether they are healthy, injured, or dying. Pycnosis means nuclear shrinkage into a dense dark mass. Karyorrhexis means fragmentation of the nucleus. These are classic features of cell death. Now let's differentiate two important concepts. Anisocytosis means variation in cell size. Anisokaryosis means variation in nuclear size. Pleomorphism is a nuclear variation and polymorphism is a cell variation. Now let's discuss the different types of giant cells. Langerhans giant cells show peripheral horseshoe-shaped nuclei and are commonly seen in granulomatous diseases. Teuton giant cells show a ring of nuclei with foamy cytoplasm and are seen in xanthomatous lesions. Foreign body giant cells have haphazardly arranged nuclei. Multinucleated giant cells derived from keratinocytes are seen in viral infections, like herpes and poxvirus infections. And those derived from melanocytes are seen in epithelioid and Spitz naive. Immunofluorescence, or IF, is the gold standard for blistering disorders. Biopsy selection rules require sampling 1 centimeter away from the bulla for immunobullous disorders. Indirect IF uses substrates like monkey esophagus or normal human skin to diagnose different conditions. This slide explains the level at which blister formation occurs in different immunobullous disorders. In pemphigus foliaceus, the split occurs very superficially in the epidermis because antibodies target desmoglein 1, since the blister is very superficial and fragile. In pemphigus vulgaris, the split occurs above the basal layer, producing suprabasal clefting. This happens due to antibodies against desmoglein 3 and sometimes desmoglein 1. Histologically, the basal cells remain attached to the basement membrane, producing the classic woe of tombstones appearance. In bullous pemphigoid, the antibodies target hemidesmosomal proteins in the basement membrane zone, mainly BP180 and BP230. Because the split is deeper, the blisters are tense. Paraneoplastic pemphigus is associated with antibodies against proteins like desmoplakin and is associated with malignancy. Immunofluorescence patterns are important because they help diagnose diseases by showing specific antibody deposition in tissues, especially in autoimmune conditions. In pemphigus, intercellular IgG produces a chicken wire pattern. In bullous pemphigoid, linear deposition occurs along the basement membrane. In dermatitis herpetiformis, granular IgA deposits appear in dermal papillae. In lichen planus, fibrin deposition occurs at basement membrane zone. Lupus bands seen in connective tissue disease and red fluorescence suggest SCC. Now let's discuss depigmented conditions like albinism, which has immature melanosomes, and vitiligo, which has decreased or absent melanocytes. Polyclonal lymphocyte populations usually suggest inflammatory condition, whereas monoclonal raise suspicion for lymphoma.
Thanks for watching. Hit like, share, and subscribe to the Dermatology Studio. Ask your skin queries in the comments below.